On this episode, we'll discuss creating safe ministry environments for families. Well, hey there, and welcome to another episode of the Church Leadership Lab podcast, the show that is dedicated to inspiring leaders and empowering healthy churches. How do we do that? It is all through conversations, interviews, and stories, all as we're exploring what's happening in ministry today and how pastors and leaders can navigate what lies ahead. I'm Kendall Connor, joined by my co-host, Jessica Moore. Hey there, how are you, Jess?
I'm good. How are you, Kendall?
I'm good. It's always good to, have you on here with me for the past few episodes. You've been traveling and doing some different things, right? And so it's always great to have you back on here, back in action.
Yeah, glad to be back.
Yeah, it's a good one to be back for. We've got a great episode planned today. We've got a very special guest who's actually on our Ministry Brands team, which is not something that we always get to do, right? To have someone that we know that we're close to here at Ministry Brands. For those of you who are listening who may not know, our show is made possible by Ministry Brands. That's the company that Jess and I work for. And so being able to have one of our own here joining us today is kind of a treat. I'm excited to jump in. We're going to be talking to Ryan Carter on the subject today of creating safe ministry environments for families. Jess, I know that you've got a family. Tell us a little bit about your family.
Yeah, I've got two big kids now. They are 13 and 12. And we're involved with our church. And then my husband and I, and actually the kids all served in kids church also with our 4 and 5 year olds. Got our little family. They're super fun. They're at a great age right now. They are like super independent and they're teenagers, but they're not like, they still need us so much to drive them places. And so they still like us. They're still fun and nice.
If you've got teenagers who like you, I feel like you're winning at life, right?
Yeah, 100%. Hopefully we maintain a great relationship with them. We've got some sweet friends that have teenagers, 2 families that we admire very much. And their teens still hang out all the time. So I have hope for us.
I love that. I love hearing stories like that. And similar to you, we have some families too that we look up to, that we're, striving to pull as many good things from them, good habits and things from them as we can. Because my wife, Holly, and I, we have 3 boys and they're not quite that old yet. My oldest, he's 9. And so we've got some young guys and, every season has, pros and cons to it, right? So we, are soaking up all the good that comes with this season while also, making sure with 3 brothers that they're, not beating up each other every chance that they get, right?
Yeah. Someone recently told me that one of their kids was an EGR kid. And I was like, what's an EGR kid? And she's like, extra grace required. I was like, oh, that's good. I think we all have one of those.
I like that. That's too good. Well, talking about the subject of families is something that it sounds like is going to be near to both of our hearts on this. And we're going to talk to someone today, Ryan, that I know that it's something that's really important to him. For those of you who are listening today who maybe haven't gotten a chance to connect with Ryan before, let me tell you a little bit about him, give you a little bit of his story. So Ryan Carter, he is a seasoned leader with over 17 years of experience helping churches create safer environments where families can thrive. Much of his impact has come through his leadership at Protect My Ministry, which is a trusted solution from Ministry Brands that specializes in background screening, risk management, and things like that. Ryan is based in Tampa, Florida, and he is more than just a leader in church safety, right? He is a devoted husband, proud father of 4. I'm excited to hear a little bit more about that from him. But in his free time, something that he enjoys doing is he likes to kind of channel that competitive spirit into Spartan races, which, again, that's something else we're going to have to hear more from him about. He loves having that physical challenge and also just promoting that mental toughness that comes with those. Ryan's journey includes a broad background in recruiting, training, quality control, strategic planning, so many good things, all of which fuel his passion for helping ministries grow stronger, safer, and more equipped to serve. And so without further ado, I'm ready to jump into this conversation today. Ryan, thank you so much for being on the podcast with us today. How are you?
Yeah, thank you guys so much for having me. I appreciate the invite and the extremely kind introduction. Father of 4. My oldest is 14. My youngest is 6. So I've got a pretty pretty fun.
You got some range there. Yeah,
you got some range. Got a little range. Yeah, my older two are both 14 and 13, and then 10 and 6. So we've got our hands very much full, but it's a lot of fun. 6 days out of 7. I mean, that's a win.
That's a win. And I got to know if you're a big fan of these Spartan races, have any of your kids shown any interest in getting into anything like that?
So all of them have run at least one or two. My wife has run a couple. My older two are now both running the adult races with me. And amazing. Actually in this fall in September, the three of us are doing our first race weekend together, where they're going to run every race that I'm running over the weekend, which is a big deal, because in 2 days, it's like 3 different races, 30 miles, 100 obstacles. Like, it's a big deal. And so they're both like really excited about it, which makes it a lot of fun for me too.
So is it only Spartan races that you run?
I've done others. So I've done, I know about Savage Race and a couple of other, I like obstacle course races. I've done half marathons. I like doing obstacle courses because with half marathons or marathons, I just find myself getting into, it's an hour and a half or 2.5 hours later, and I'm still running. Like, I don't want to do this. Give me something else to do. Yeah, 100%. And so Spartan is nice because we'll have you run, but then we're also going to make you climb things and carry buckets and go under barbed wire. And it's a blast. And I've actually, another fun story with it, I've recruited probably 25 different people from ministry brands to also go run the races with us. Yeah. They hate me for it, but for me, it's just fun.
That's what I was going to do. Look, just Google Spartan races near me. Yeah. No, I'm such a wimp when it comes to running. Now, Spartan races is interesting. I was actually just telling somebody that I was like, I can handle cardio as long as my mind is just as busy, if not busier than my body. If I'm running, I'm so bored. I'm just thinking about how awful it is. But if I'm doing something else, I can usually hang a lot longer.
Yeah, it's great. It's fantastic. You'll be thinking about how awful it is too, but it won't just be because of the running. So at least it's
But also
variety.
You need to keep your eyes up and keep going, or you'll bust your face.
Yeah, Ryan, you've got to get some kind of sponsorship or something off of this thing, because you're really hyping this thing up. Just for all of our listeners, we're not sponsored by Spartan Races. This is just fun to talk about.
None of us are getting paid. But at Spartan, hit me up.
There you go.
Give me a merch credit or something.
There you go. Well, I love it. Ryan, one of the ways that we love to start this podcast, we always ask our guests, we read a public bio and we've heard a little bit about your family and the races, but what's something else that maybe doesn't make that public bio that all your family and friends would know about you?
Yeah, so I think for me, on top of the ministry aspect of safety and children and youth and things like that, where I've been involved, I have been really heavily involved in mission trips starting at a really young age. So when I first started, I was 16 years old. I went for a month-long mission trip to Venezuela. And then the following summer, I did a 2-month trip to Peru. And then I did another trip to Hong Kong and China and Panama and Mexico. So I grew up very much involved and believing heavily in, overseas missions, local missions. The church is more than just me. We need to be outward focused and mission minded. And so I got that bug, if you will, very early in life, which was a huge blessing for me, kind of moving me in through the ministry world and experiencing it in a different way, which was awesome.
So cool.
No, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I feel like our kids are just at that age to start doing missions trips, and my son would thrive. He would love it. My daughter's more introverted. It'll definitely be a learning experience for her, but
it's funny you say that too, because my daughter now, she just turned 13, and when she was little, she was so shy and so introverted that we used to threaten her, instead of being grounded to her room, which she would see as a reward. We would say, hey, your punishment is you're going to go have to knock on the neighbor's door and ask them 5 questions.
Ooh,
you need to pay attention, or we're going to make you be extroverted. And she would immediately oh no. Having said that, now she's the first one that wants to go on a mission trip. So my brother-in-law owns and operates a children's home out of Dominican Republic, and they do mission trips there all the time. And she's like, I want to go, I want to serve, I want to go, play with the kids and do Sunday school. And so it's crazy to see how someone whose personality has grown into, even though she's still kind of introverted, she wants to do missions and she wants to do that stuff. So it's interesting to see that.
Cool. That's
It's
awesome.
fun.
So, really quickly, I'd love to just hear, before we jump into, talking about the subject of creating these safe environments, could you tell us quickly a little bit about your story and, how did kind of helping ministries, be safe and do all these things become a priority for you?
Yeah, so it kind of ties into my early days of mission trips was through an organization called Teen Mania. Some church people, I'm sure, are familiar with Acquire the Fire and Global Expedition.
Sure, yeah.
That it was a massive part of my early days in ministry and in the youth world and things like that. And I loved that. I started going to Acquire the Fire when I was 13, and then I started doing mission trips through them at the age of 16. And then I ended up getting involved even more in their year-long and their staff programs and some of the continuing your ministry experience. And as a result of that, I got really passionate around the ministry and how churches work and how they function. And through that experience, got exposed to Protect My Ministry in that organization. And it was great. I started when there were like 6 people. And so I was number 7. And I walk in and it's like the owner at the time, he had like 2 cinder blocks and a board as his desk. And I was like, what have I done? Like this. I interviewed and it didn't look like this when I came.
There's some church leader who's listening to this. He's like, what are you talking about? This isn't normal.
That's
this is what our church office looks like right now.
You got cinder blocks? They make me sit on the floor.
There you go.
That's upscale. And so I started it was great because we started with a handful, less than 1,000 churches using it. And, but it came from a heart of, there was a major gap that we found with churches that they were either doing way, way, way too much, kind of like a pre-employment process, and resources that necessarily didn't need to be expended were being expended. And what we found to be way more often the case is churches were like, I don't know
what are you talking about? Yeah.
Why would we do that? And so now that was, almost 18 years ago. I've been now doing this. And so it's interesting to see the kind of the change in the cultural shift, but it was great because I started in ministry. Then I moved into kind of a salesy position. I did insurance, I did recruiting, I did quality control and training. And then I found out about this Protect My Ministry position where it was this really cool hybrid of I get to do what I like to do, which is working with churches and helping churches, but I also get to employ some of the natural skill sets and the giftings I know that the Lord has given me, which is, communication and sales and leadership and things like that. So it was a perfect mix of what I was really passionate about and then also what I was kind of talented and what I felt like I was gifted and called to do. So it worked out great.
That's awesome. So actually that kind of leads us into our next question. Why do you think it is that sometimes this is overlooked in the church, or at least used to be? I would imagine that's still the case now, just depending on who you're speaking with, or maybe they don't have efficiency in how they operate in safety and protective measures. But why do you think that happens?
Yeah, and this is a positive trend, I would say, in the church, where when I first started, I literally was calling churches and I would just connect with them very granularly. I just pick up the phone, call a church secretary, call an executive assistant, whatever, and just be like, hey, so are you all doing this, or how does it work? And I would get crickets and be like, why would we do background checks? That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
And that's shifted a lot over the past, 15, 20 years, where churches are now much more aware. They're much more in tune to, hey, this is a requirement. We need to make sure that we've got some of these boxes checked. And so that's a positive trend that's happened in the church. It's unfortunate though, because it's almost become a positive trend by necessity, where, scandal and different things have happened that have forced some hands to make decisions. And there's been a lot more movement in that direction. And some of it by necessity, some of it by just positive, I think, just cultural shift in like, hey, we need to be more aware. And it's one of those things where, because we are the church and we want to be welcoming and we want to be inviting, and we're trying to say, hey, come in and be involved and come and see like what's happening here. Yeah. That culture of inviting can also become a target. And so when you have bad actors and people who are trying to get in for nefarious reasons, that could be a problem. And so it's becoming much more commonplace. There's a lot more awareness around what are best practices. Church insurance is now requiring a lot of these things for liability coverage and for just, hey, you need to make sure you're checking all of these boxes. And so it's good. There's a lot more checks and balances and a lot more really rigor around how do we do this the right way. And so I think that's a really good thing.
Yeah, that makes sense. And, I'll always think about, try to put myself in the shoes of the guest that's coming to your church or the attendee, right? When they come in, they want to know, they want to be able to trust that church leadership, the leaders of the church, the pastors of the church have done their due diligence to make this a safe environment. When you come in, on a Sunday morning, especially if you can imagine your first time there, you don't necessarily feel safe. Like the safer you feel in an environment, the more likely you are to open your heart and things like that. And, to really hear what God wants to say to you in those places, but safety and feeling welcome and things like that. It's a huge priority. You have to have an environment where people can feel safe for them to open up themselves. And I even think about it's even more with your kids, right? I think about dropping my kids off and checking them in, right, to kids church. I want to have that comfort of knowing that, like, this church has done their homework, right? They've done their due diligence. And as a parent, that's important to me. As an attendee, that's important to me. And so I'm a big fan of what you're talking about here. For those who are listening and they're maybe not so sure, they haven't heard of Protect My Ministry before, they haven't heard these things. Can you just briefly tell us the different types of things that are involved with that and how have been able to help churches with this?
Yeah, so I think that the first things that we always want to check off the box is what are your policies? What are the things that you have documented, and what are your protection policies in place? And so before you start going into background screening or rescreening or monitoring or roles and responsibilities and interview questionnaires and safety guidelines, what does that look like? Do you all have a documented safety and protection policy? Like, what happens if you've got this situation arise? What happens if you've got, what do you have for check in and check out? Like there's a ton of different areas. And what makes it interesting is a lot of times at the church too, people don't get involved in ministry because they want to become safety experts or police. Like if I wanted that, I would have gone into law enforcement, right? I would have gone into criminal justice. Like I want to be involved in ministry. I don't want to be writing policies. Like I don't want to be doing all these safety team coordinator meetings. Like that sounds terrible to the average, children's ministry director, youth and family ministry director. Like that's, is there anybody else who would like to volunteer for that, please? And so, we try to make it a really easy guided process of, listen, as much as we can, here's everything done for you out of the box. And now, hey, take your logo, take your name, slap it on top, customize it and make it your own. And then hopefully you've got most of what you need to have a really good, successful plan in place. And you can get back to focusing on what you really want to be focused on, your mission critical work and what you're doing in the communities around you.
Yeah. So in your experience with that, and then you now talking to churches almost every single day, I would assume, on how they can help implement what we offer here at Ministry Brands, what are some of the most common safety or screening gaps that you've noticed, like around volunteers or kids ministry?
Yeah. The two things I'll say, the first hesitation that some churches have when it comes to adopting measures that are valuable and necessary is we know everybody. And so we hear that fairly often, is especially if you're a church of 80, 100, 150, which tens of thousands of churches fall into that demographic. It's very easy to say, hey, we know everybody. Like, why do we need to do these kind of trainings, or why do we need to screen? Like, man, sweet Grandma Betty's been at the church for 50 years. If I ask her to do a background check, she's going to hit me with her purse. Like we're going to have a confrontation, and that's going to be a problem. And so it goes back to what you said earlier, Kendall, which is a really valuable point of, that's great that you know everybody, but if I'm a first time guest, I don't know anybody. So your rebuttal and your response to me of, well, we know everybody, it's totally fine. That doesn't mean anything to me as the first time guest. So if you want to grow, it's important to have objective standards in place that are, hey, regardless of if we know everybody or not, we're doing this and this and this and this to make sure that we have a secure and safe environment for your family. Because that's really, most people, when they're looking into where they want to plug in and where they want to plant roots, one of the first things and the most important things they're looking at is, what's the family ministry? What's the kids look like? What's going to be offered to my kids? Is it safe? Is it wholesome? So on and so forth. And so if the rebuttal there is, well, we know everybody, it's totally fine, they're probably not going to come back. That's not going to go well. The other thing that we see as a big flaw and a gap, even for those who do have something in place, is a lot of times it's a one and done. And so they put something in place. So we will implement this set of guidelines, right? So we've got a 5-page, a 10-page, whatever, how detailed you want to be with your policies. You put it in place and you're like, well, that was fun. We're done now. and next thing you know, it's gone by. It's 2 years, 3 years, 5 years. And people are like, hey, anybody seen what happened to that? I know we wrote it down somewhere. Like, whose email is that in? And so it's like, regularly revisiting your policies to make sure, hey, is this still best practice? Do we need to update some things? Do we need to add different policies or procedures? Do we need to remove certain things? Like, hey, we thought this was going to be beneficial. Turns out it's more annoying than helpful. So let's pull that out. So doing that every 6 to 12 months is another guideline that we would recommend, and saying, hey, come back and revisit and make sure what you're doing is still working well and it's still referred as the best practice for you.
You brought up go ahead, Jess.
I was going to say that's a good rule of thumb for like policies and rules anywhere you go, including your home. Like our family rules probably need to be revisited on a regular basis, and that's great.
So, Ryan, I know we're talking about different background checks and screenings and things like that. What is the current recommendation these days for doing this? Is that something that the church should just do for their kids' ministry, or for every volunteer? What does that look like in the churches that you've been able to work with?
Yeah, so good question. I think the general guidelines that we provide, one, the church will dictate their own set of policies around how deeply you want to go with all of your screening procedures and who you're screening and how often and things like that. But as a general rule of thumb, we would say anybody who's volunteering at your organization, they represent you. So they might as well have your logo, stamped on their forehead while they're serving in their official capacity. So you want to do at least an entry level screen to make sure that you have some idea of their history and you're not putting someone in place that has some history that you should know about before they start representing you. Now, having said that, you will tailor that based on the position. So the way you would screen somebody who's an executive pastor or handling finances, for example, maybe you run a credit report or you do a deeper dive into criminal history just to make sure there's nothing to be concerned about there. That's going to be a lot more detailed and a lot more of a deep dive kind of search versus someone who's going to be working as a parking lot attendant, for example. Maybe if they're working in a capacity where they drive a church bus or a church van, you can run a motor vehicle report to check and make sure they don't have 5-6 speeding tickets in the last year or two. And they're not going to be a danger driving around, your teens or your youth. And again, if they have it, that doesn't mean they can't volunteer. It just means maybe you're sitting on the bus, not necessarily driving the bus, right? So some of it is a practical wisdom thing, but you do have the ability as the church and as your organization to dictate how deep do we want to go, and that can be tailored based on the position that the person works at the church.
So, we kind of joked around about speeding, but what other types of risks do churches face if they skip or rush through this process?
Yeah, so there's a sliding scale, right? There is the overall just not doing things the way that that you could be and should be, and that's the minor side. The most egregious part of it is, God forbid, something does happen where you have an incident at your church. There's a safety breach. You've got some sort of incident that comes up at the church. The first thing that always happens is you're going to have the question of what's called due diligence. How deeply did you perform your due diligence to mitigate risk and protect your staff, those in your care, and the volunteer base that you're leading, to make sure that the person that you put in place there has been properly vetted, that they're not a risk or a danger to themselves, to others around them. And if they have exposure to minors, that's about the highest level of, it's not okay just to do background checks. You've got to have this in place. You've got to do training, and you've got to have, never more than, never a single adult in the room, never have a minor unsupervised. You've got a lot of extra things along the way that you want to make sure that you've got those boxes checked so that you can say, hey, you don't want to be in a situation where somebody asks, hey, we understand that sometimes people do bad things and there's only so much you can do to prevent that, right? We understand we live in a fallen world. The news media doesn't always care as much, but we understand sometimes bad things happen. The big question is, what did you do about it?
Right.
And if your answer is, well, we thought we knew everybody, that's going to go very differently for your organization versus, well, we had this and we had this and we had, and then it's like, well, I mean, these guys did everything they possibly could.
Right.
That puts your organization in a completely different talk track, in a completely different lane, where now instead of maybe some blame or some judgment or condemnation, now you've got a little bit of, wow, man, these guys really have done everything that they could to make sure that didn't happen. Unfortunately, there's only so much you can do, right?
Yeah, that's good. That's a good answer.
And it is a good reminder, just hearing, the importance of going through, again, making sure that you've done your part. The churches have done their part to make sure that everyone is safe. And I kind of want to shift it a little bit because, we a lot of times for churches, we think, okay, Sunday mornings, but I know that we're in a season right now where we have a lot of special events and things like that coming up. With Easter is on the way. I think about things like Easter egg hunts, and if you want to jump farther in the area, fall festivals, and places where you may be getting other volunteers involved in things like that. Summer camps, VBSs, all these different things. What are some of the blind spots that maybe churches face when it comes to big events like this? What approach should you take in times like these?
Yeah, that's a really good point, especially as we get closer to VBS. Summer's going to be here before we all know it. And that's, we are driven by volunteers, right? And so I would say the big message that we would say and push and actively try to get as many people to buy into as much as you can is, don't let our overwhelming need for volunteers overshadow the safety. And so we know and we all know, like I've been in ministry before, I've been in volunteer teams before, where we're like, okay, we need to recruit. We need people because we've got 10,000 Easter egg hunts, or 10,000 Easter eggs that we're going to hunt in this field over here. And we need to stuff the eggs and we need this. So you have to have a plan around, okay, we're about to bring in 5 times more volunteers on a weekend than we normally have. Let's make sure they're all screened. Let's make sure that they're in teams. Let's get rid of any sort of closed doors, locked doors, no windows, no visibility. Make everything high vis. Don't just do the bare minimum. Please make sure that you've gone through the main policy procedures of, you've got background screening, you've got training, you've got some things that we'd love to have you. We need to have you. But before we do, we have to do this. Don't wait until the week before the event to do all that, because then you're going to be like, oh, shoot, I forgot. I have to do this. Hold on a second. And it's going to create even more stress to what's already going to be a high stress thing, right? So plan accordingly. Get those plans in place now, because we're not that far away. And you don't want to get yourself in a situation where you're scrambling to check off the safety boxes to fulfill we have to have volunteers box, right? So don't let our own need and requirement for volunteers overshadow the need to also be safe about it.
Yeah. Well, and so I was going to ask you, how long do these take? But I've done them because I needed to when we were doing kids ministry. And I know, I received an email on behalf of my church, and it took me to a website where it was literally like a series of check boxes. I gave my information and then, heard back pretty quickly that I'd passed my background check. I think that if your church is not already implementing this and you're wondering, does it take a long time? Is it difficult? It's not that the process itself takes a long time, but you want to give plenty of time for your volunteers to do that ahead of your events, ahead of what you're planning, and then also to give yourself enough time to respond one way or the other. If, yes, they've passed their background check, it feels like a really good fit, you still have to work through the policies and everything else with them in plenty of time. So just, if anyone else was thinking, what does this timeline look like? Ryan, I'm sure you can speak to that a little bit more. But in general, on the volunteer side, what we've experienced is that it's really not a big lift on my end as a volunteer. It really is just timing and then making sure that it is easy and painless for your volunteers to work through so that it gets done, right? You're already asking them to show up and stuff a billion eggs. So the least you can do is make that process seamless for them as well. So, it's quick.
It is. Yeah, it's really not hard. And especially on the volunteer side, if you're just one person doing your application where, hey, it's an email invitation or it's a text link, or there's a lot of different ways that you can facilitate it. They go online, they put in their info, that gets submitted, and then it's usually 2 to 4 days tops before the results are back and cleared and you're ready to go. The problem, not even the problem, but the challenge that the church that we face in the church is we are used to screening our KidMin volunteers, right? So if you're working in KidMin or you're working in youth, we've already done your background check. Well, when we have VBS come, now we're talking about screening people who maybe are not normally volunteering. And so now we get an influx that we have to go, and all of a sudden our volume and our cadence picks up quite a bit.
Yeah, good call.
Now, Ryan, forgive me because I didn't prepare you for this question, but I feel like it would be great value for our churches to know if we are doing all of these things, if we've done our due diligence and we've made sure that our kids ministry volunteers and our volunteers, all these things we've done checked all the boxes, so to speak. Should we be telling our church family about this? Like, should we be reassuring them that like we've done it? What would you recommend on something like that? Or is it just something that, if a family member asks what your kids ministry does, like what's the best practice on that? Is it something to promote or what? What would your recommendation be on that?
Yeah, have it easily accessible and have at least portions of it be highly visible. And so a lot of churches will have like safe and secure badges. And so they'll have, a volunteer name badge, and it's like screened since, whatever the date is, or you'll have, volunteer certified as of whatever this date was. And that shows like, hey, this person's done their thing. And then if you don't have it, let's say it's not that way, that's one way to do it. You can also have my church. And for example, we've got, very clear, hey, here's the doors. These are locked during the service. Here's your check-in. Here's your check-out. They've got on our church website, we've got a list of, you can literally click on it and say, what are our policies? Click, and it opens up the safety policies. And then we've got sections of it. Actually, you can see it in the hallways. And so it's like, we've got a picture of David and Goliath and how we keep your kids safe. And so there's ways that you can do it where, hey, it's highly visible. And, some of it is communicated in different forms, whether that's on the website, whether it's signs and placards. And you can say like, hey, look, these are some very practical steps. And obviously you're not going to take your entire 6, 7, 8, 10, however many page policy and just like drape it on your wallpaper. But you can say, hey, here we believe in safety, and here's how. Here's 3 reasons. And you get some practical check marks along the way. At our church, we've got we have a safety team who stands at the door and stands there during service, and just that's your response. That's your job for this week, is you stand right here and you make sure nobody comes in and comes out without their check box or their sticker. And if somebody does, they're like, hey, nice to meet you. I'm Billy Bob Joe. Where's your sticker? You can't come back here. So there's some things like that. That's really reassuring to me as a parent. It can be really annoying because I've been there for 14 years, and they're like, where's your sticker? I'm like, you going to keep my kid? Like, come on. They're like, sorry, I don't know you. And I'm like, you know what? That's fair. That's fair enough. So it's a good thing.
Awesome. I think too, that could be a really good, I feel like it's fairly obvious, but just to verbalize it, I think that'd be a really good portion to include in maybe your new member, or if you've got like a class or something at your church that you do for first time visitors. If you include any sort of like written, like a pamphlet or something in that bag that we always talk about, giving your visitors a gift bag. But if you've got that on there, I think that's a good place too, just because it's probably a top question on their mind. And then you can open up for more conversation with them. This is, if they have questions about it, like I noticed that you're doing this for safety or whatever. If nothing else, it gives them peace of mind to come again. It's one of those questions that maybe they'd feel uncomfortable asking. But yeah, I think if you're not adding that there, you definitely should.
Yeah, I think that's a really good call.
That's a great idea. We always tell in our church that our kids ministry is safe, clean, and fun, and then we give an explanation for each one of those things. And that's an opportunity, that you can expand on what that looks like. And You gave some great ideas there, Ryan. Ryan, we've talked about so many different things today and given a lot of advice for churches. I'm just curious. We talk a lot about healthy churches and what it looks like to promote a healthy church and be a part of that. In your opinion, what would you say that is one essential component of a healthy church?
So to quote our Lord, be wise as serpents and harmless as doves, right? So like we are constantly living in the tension of inviting and secure. Like we want to be a place that's inviting and welcoming and warm and loving, but we have to be secure. And those can work in tension. And so we partner with some great organizations, and I'm totally going to steal some of his things here. But my good friend Josh, he talks about making sure that your policies, they can be the bad guy more than you can. So what happens is if you document your policies and then all of a sudden, and this will happen eventually, we see it in between 5 and 15% of the volunteers that we screen, something comes back that's a disqualifying offense to work with kids. Now, we still love you. We still want you to volunteer, but maybe we find a different area where you can serve, right?
Yeah.
And so, but if you have to have that conversation, all of a sudden now you look like the bad guy versus if you document something out and say, these are what we're considering, a green is clear. Obviously, if you have no background, awesome. Love to have you. Let's go. Front of the line. Can't wait. Then we've got the red, which is, no, if you've got violent offense, if you've got this kind of offense or that kind of offense, we love you, but we're going to find somewhere else. And then you've got a little bit, and you want to make this area as little as possible, needs review. So if you have a needs review, that area becomes now one where you've got to have some, a little bit of unique, we're going to handle this on a case-by-case basis conversations. Make that as little as possible.
Yeah.
Because then you can say, hey, listen, I'm not trying to be mean. It's just our policy is this and this and that. And that you make that the black hat, if you will, where, hey, I didn't say no. The policy said no.
Yeah.
And so that helps a lot. So try to do that and be wise and be harmless and walk in that tension as well as we possibly can. Because at the end of the day, we're mission minded and we're outreach focused and we want to be a light in the community and we don't want to convey this sense of entitlement or I'm better than or anything like that. That's never the mission. That's never the heart of anybody who's doing these things, hopefully.
Yes.
And so, we want to put all those things in place with grace and with love, but also with wisdom.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
That's great.
No, this has just been a really helpful conversation, just getting to hear your perspective on these things. And I'm hoping that all of our listeners today can just walk away from this just feeling a little bit more informed, and it can help to really bring some of that knowledge and guide us through these things, because it's important for this day and age for sure. Or look, Ryan, one of the things that we love to do as we wrap things up is we have a final 5 where we try to get in our last few minute questions. Are you up for the challenge of going through a couple of quick questions with us?
Let's do it. I'm in.
Awesome. Jess, do you want to lead us through these fast 5?
Sure. Yeah, let's do it. Okay. What is one book on this subject or similar that you'd recommend to church leaders?
I'm going to cheat here. Shameless plug, protectmyministry.com/resources. Or don't quote me on that. Just go to our website and there's a whole safety section where it's all free. I'm not trying to sell you anything. It's free.
Yeah,
we have a free cybersecurity book. We have a free background check blueprint book. We have access to Lead Security, a great partner who has tons of documents, all like free. Some, yes, you'll pay for, but most of what I want you to go get is completely free on our website. Whether you use us or not, go get it, get educated, and take the free things.
That's great.
Free 99 is my favorite price.
Love it.
I love it. That's awesome. Okay. Little funner question. To me, it's funner because I love music. What's the last thing you listened to on Spotify, Apple Music, or wherever you stream music?
Ooh. Okay. So I've also volunteered my church worship team, and I was on drums, and so I was listening to my set, but that's Brandon Lake. So we're doing a couple Brandon Lake songs.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
Praise and a few others. So yeah.
Love it. Okay. Favorite piece of technology or software?
I'm wearing it.
Yes.
Garmin.
Oh, wait, that's a Garmin.
It's a Garmin. I had 2 Apple Watches. The Garmin is way judgier and way meaner to me. It's constantly get up off your butt. You're lazy. And I'm like, whoa, Garmin, easy. You can do whatever you want. It doesn't matter. Apple was really nice. Like, I'm proud of you. Garmin is much judgier. So
that's on brand for you and your start. Yeah, your start races. I love it.
Yeah, do hard things.
My watch is gentle. You're right. And I ignore her all the time. Yeah. Okay. Favorite quote or advice that has stuck with you over the years?
Adhere strongly to designated authority, aka hire smart people and let them do their jobs. Don't try to micromanage everything. I am a person who I like to just try to grab it by the horns and just like, I've got this. I can do it. Like I want to own it and finish it and do it myself. And that's not effective leadership, and it's not good for scale. If you want to run fast, run by yourself. If you want to run far, run together. And so it's like, hey, like designated authority.
We got a twofer. That's two quotes right there. Love it. Okay. One thing you would like to communicate to our audience of church leaders.
Don't let perfection be the enemy of progress. And I'm hitting you guys with a whole bunch of puns and just little sayings and all the quotes and all the wisdoms. But like, I love it. Don't be so concerned about it being perfect that you don't make it better. Right. And so what's one or two things that you can do today to make your church safer? What's one or two things that you can do this quarter or after we get out of Easter and we start moving towards the summer? Like, what can you do just to make it better? Don't worry about perfection. Like, we're not going to be perfect, but let's work on just making things better, and don't be so hard on yourself all the time. We in church and ministry, it's very, very easy to be like, I wish we could, I wish we had the resources. It's okay. It's okay. Give yourself a little bit more grace and just work on progress, and people will hopefully follow that lead with you.
Awesome. Love it.
This is some really solid advice that you brought here right at the end. I love it. This is great stuff, Ryan. I know that people are going to be, some of our listeners are thinking, how can I connect with you more? What's the best way to get in touch with you? Is it protectmyministry.com, or you have any other links or anything that you'd like to give us?
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn. You can find me on all the socials. Like, click, and subscribe. Yeah. I'm just kidding. I don't have any of that. That's not my brand at all. But no, first name dot last name. So Ryan.Carter@ministrybrands.com.
Yes.
I love helping and working with churches. If you have something related to this or even not related to this, feel free to do that. I'm on LinkedIn there. Email. protectmyministry.com. I'm there. So you can find me in a few different spots. But
you're going to get a person asking you for a Spartan Race affiliate link.
I think so.
If you're looking for discount codes, I can find them. I don't have any myself. Spartan, hit me up. If there's anybody watching from that organization, I definitely would like to hear from you.
That's so funny. Well, yeah, this has been awesome, Ryan. Thank you so much for taking time to talk with us today. And as someone who's raising a family, right, this is close to my heart. And so, thank you for all that you're doing and for all the advice that you've given our ministry leaders today.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate the conversation, you all.
Absolutely.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah. And Jess, thank you for being on here with us today. And for everyone who's listening, if this has been valuable to you, something that we always ask of you is to try to help us get the word out, to get this to more ministry leaders. Maybe you've got a friend serving in ministry, someone on your staff that needs to hear this, or, any way that you can help us to get the word out to other ministry leaders. We're here for it. We'd love to have your help on that. You can follow us wherever you're listening to this podcast. If you're over on YouTube, definitely click that subscribe button. Leave us a comment. Leave us a review. We'd love to hear feedback from you on how we're doing and what you'd like to see more of. But until next time, we're looking forward to seeing you right back here on Church Leadership Lab.
This episode of the Church Leadership Lab podcast is brought to you by Ministry Brands, the largest provider of church technology software. Over 90,000 churches rely on Ministry Brands for their single platform solution that brings together all the digital tools a church needs. From online giving to websites to church management software and more, Ministry Brands is leading the way in simple to use, innovative solutions, all with the goal of empowering healthy churches. To learn more, visit ministrybrands.com.